Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I'm really glad you're joining me today because we are tackling a topic that is, well, literally everywhere right now. I am a Nigerian software engineer, and I've been writing code professionally since 2001. That's over 2.5 decades doing practically nothing else but building software applications. And today, I want to share my honest, completely unfiltered perspective on what artificial intelligence actually means for our field. So, can AI really replace software developers? It is the absolute number one question I'm getting these days from students, from business leaders, and even seasoned tech professionals. Today, we're going to dive deep into this question. But we're not doing it with exaggerated hype, we're not using corporate buzzwords, and we are definitely not doing it with fear. Instead, we're looking at the facts through the lens of 25 years of real-world experience. Section 1. 25 years of coding. Okay, let's dive into this by taking a quick step back. Because to really understand where we're going with AI, we first have to understand where we've come from. I have watched this industry change so many times. I literally started back in the DOS programming days. I worked heavily with BASIC, Database, Fortran, and Pascal. Then the whole visual era arrived, and I moved through Visual Basic 3, 4, 5, and 6. Later on, I spent years working extensively with VB.NET, C#, Clarion, and PowerBasic. I mean, I've built so many applications over the years, some of which have original code bases that are probably locked on a floppy disk somewhere gathering dust. And today, I'm working with Python and AI-assisted programming. So seeing programming evolve through all these different generations gives me a very specific lens on our current situation. Section 2. The pre-AI challenges. Let's transition to what it was actually like in the trenches before artificial intelligence existed. Because if you want to know what AI is replacing, you really need to know what the job actually entailed. You know, when I started professional software development, one of the biggest challenges wasn't necessarily the programming language itself. Writing code wasn't the hardest part. The real challenge was acting as a translator. A client would come to you and say, "I need a system that does this," but their requirements were incredibly vague. When you actually started asking questions, you'd quickly discover that what they described wasn't what they needed at all. You had to improvise, ask the right questions, and literally help them understand their own business before you could even think about translating that into software. And after all that, you faced the sheer grind of manual coding. Even a relatively simple request meant you had to manually build the UI, write the business logic, design the database, hook it all up, and debug every single line yourself. Section 3. The AI programming shift. And then AI came along. And I have to be completely honest with you guys, it totally took me by surprise. As someone who has spent over 2 decades typing out software manually, I was genuinely impressed. I don't look at AI as magic, for sure, but I definitely do not look at it as useless either. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it validates exactly what we're seeing in the industry right now. AI-assisted programming, whether you want to call it AI coding, vibe coding, or whatever, is not a gimmick. It is a permanent, major shift in how we build software. Modern AI systems can generate sophisticated user interfaces, write complex business logic, suggest solutions, and help debug. It can produce in minutes what might have previously taken a developer a very, very long time. It's a massive part of our future, no doubt about it. Section 4, when AI gets it wrong. But there is a problem. There are some serious hidden dangers in blindly trusting these incredible new tools. Let me share something I've learned from actually using them on the ground. I do a lot of mentoring, particularly teaching Python to members of PyLadies Rivers right here in Nigeria. And I see this happen all the time. AI can produce code that looks incredibly convincing. You can look at a piece of generated code and think, wow, this looks perfectly fine. It seems entirely reasonable. But then you run it and bam, there's an error. And this brilliantly illustrates the real danger we face. On the left, we have an obvious error. The program just flat out crashes. If a program crashes, hey, you know something's wrong and you can fix it. But look at the right. We have a silent error. The code generated by the AI runs perfectly, no crashes at all, but the answer it produces is entirely wrong. That is far more dangerous. If you don't fully understand the code you're implementing, you might not even realize the system is making critical mistakes in the background. Yes, you can tell the AI it made a mistake and it might fix it, which is awesome. But the lesson here is crystal clear. You cannot blindly trust generated code. Section 5. Why human judgment matters. This brings us to the core argument of this entire explainer, the critical distinction between just typing out code and true software engineering. Because typing code, that is only one part of the job. A software engineer has to figure out, what problem are we actually trying to solve here? What does the customer really need? Is this generated code structurally sound? What architecture should we use? Is the system secure? How should the database be designed so it actually scales? And crucially, what happens when something fails? These are heavy cognitive loads. AI can absolutely assist with the typing and implementation, but the human engineer still has to shoulder the responsibility of answering those questions. You see, answering those big questions requires judgment. And judgment isn't something you can just prompt into existence. It comes from deep understanding, it comes from years of experience, it comes from making mistakes and, frankly, feeling the pain of those mistakes. It comes from solving real business problems in the real world. And that is exactly why the future of software engineering isn't humans versus AI. The actual future is humans working side by side with AI. Section 6. The future software engineer. So what does this all mean for the next generation? I talk to a lot of students and junior developers who are pretty anxious about their place in this new landscape. They literally ask me, why should I even learn programming when AI can just write the code for me? My answer to them is always very simple, and I want to emphasize this strongly. That is the completely wrong way to look at it. Learn programming, learn software engineering, master the fundamentals, understand databases, systems, security, algorithms, architecture, testing, and requirements analysis. Understand how to actually solve problems, and then, and only then, learn how to use AI extremely well. Don't choose between programming and AI. You absolutely must learn both. So the crucial point is this: AI is an amplifier. If you understand software engineering deeply and you also know how to use AI effectively, you have tremendous leverage. You can move so much faster, experiment more, build more, and solve problems quicker. But most importantly, because you have that deep foundational knowledge, you can actually evaluate what the AI is producing to ensure it's correct and secure. Looking ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, I am highly optimistic. I do not see the sky falling on software developers. I believe that good software engineers will remain extremely valuable. In fact, because more and more companies are becoming software and data-driven thanks to AI, engineers who combine deep foundational knowledge with AI fluency will become dramatically more productive and valuable than they even are today. AI will replace some programming tasks, absolutely, but it is not going to replace the discipline of software engineering. After 25 years in this industry, watching it transform from DOS all the way to AI, my best advice is, don't be afraid of this change. Learn the fundamentals and use AI as a tool to elevate your work. The sky is truly just the starting point. But hey, I want to turn this over to you now. Will AI eventually replace software developers, or will it make good developers even more powerful? I'd really love to hear your perspective on this, so please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building.